Okay, so what if I told you that one of the most important people in modern music was basically a hacker? No, not a computer hacker. I'm talking about a guy who looked at the entire system of music, all the rules, what makes a song catchy, and decided, nah, I'm going to rewrite the whole code. His name was Arnold Schoenberg, and he pretty much changed everything.
I mean, seriously, just think about your favorite song right now. Got it? Okay, now imagine that main melody, the part that gets stuck in your head. What if it just wasn't there? What if every single note was just as important as every other note, with no main character note to come back to? Well, that's the world Arnold Schoenberg wanted to create.
So let's break this down, kind of like a showdown. In one corner, you've got the rules for pretty much all the music you've ever heard. A catchy tune is the hero, there's a key that feels like a safe home base, and it all sounds pretty familiar. And in the other corner, you've got Schoenberg's wild idea, a world where every note is equal, there is no home base, and the music is designed to be totally unpredictable.
But here's the thing, and this is super important. You can't just break the rules. You have to master them first. Before Schoenberg could invent his own game, he had to be an absolute expert at the old one. It's like a pro gamer who knows every map, every character, every secret, before they figure out a wild new strategy that nobody's ever seen. That was Schoenberg's first quest. And man, was he good at it. He was born in Vienna, Austria, and he studied the music of the biggest composers around, guys like Wagner and Brahms. His first pieces, they were totally traditional. They were beautiful, super emotional, and followed all the rules of harmony that everybody knew and loved. He basically had to prove he could win the game the normal way before he turned it upside down. So after he proved he could play by the rules, Schoenberg was ready for his first huge leap. He wanted to invent a whole new kind of musical world, one without that familiar feeling of gravity pulling everything together. And this first major experiment was something called atonality.
Okay, so what even is atonality? Well, think of it as music with no home base. In almost every song you know, there's a main note or a chord that feels like home, right? It's the place the music always wants to come back to. Well, in atonal music, that home base is just gone. Every note is kind of a wanderer, totally free and totally equal.
Here's a cool way to picture it. Most music is like your favorite TV show. It's always going to come back to the main character's apartment or that one coffee shop. Atonal music, though, is more like a crazy adventure show, where every single scene takes place in a brand new, totally random location. You literally never know where you're headed next.
But see, total freedom can get a little chaotic. So Schoenberg, being the master rule breaker he was, decided to create a new system with a new set of rules to organize this wild, atonal world. He called it the 12-tone technique, but I think a cooler name for it is the 12-note challenge. And this entire new system, this brilliant, complicated musical universe he was building, it was all based on one single powerful number, 12. He took all 12 notes in Western music and gave them a completely new job to do. All right, the core of this whole new game is something called a tone row. This is basically your main quest. You take all 12 musical notes and you put them in whatever order you want. That specific order you create becomes the secret code, like the DNA for the entire song you're about to write. So the main rule of the 12-note challenge sounds simple, but it is totally revolutionary. First, you line up all 12 notes in your own unique order. That's your tone row. Then, the big rule is, you have to play every single note in that row before you can repeat any of them. That one little rule is the key, because it makes it impossible for any single note to become that home base, which forces the music to stay surprising. And it gets even cooler. Schoenberg also built in some awesome power-ups for composers to play with. Once you have your tone row, you can remix it. You can play it upside down, which is called inversion, or you could play it backward, like you're hitting rewind on a video. That's retrograde. You can even do both at the same time. These were all brand new tools for a composer's toolbox. So Schoenberg comes up with this totally radical new way to write music. But what happens when you introduce something that's so different? Well, you've got to face the final boss, public opinion. And let me tell you, that was a tough fight. Yeah, people were not ready for this at all. Audiences were used to nice, comfortable melodies. To them, Schoenberg's music just sounded chaotic and weird. Critics called it harsh, confusing. Basically, a lot of people just thought it was noise. But like any true innovator, Schoenberg believed in his idea and stuck with it.
You can really see his whole journey play out over his life. After mastering the old style in the early 1900s, he takes that huge risk around 1908 with atonality. By about 1921, he's figured out the whole 12-tone system. His ideas were so revolutionary, he actually had to flee Europe and came to the US, where he taught and wrote music until he died in 1951, leaving behind a completely different musical world.
So, did he win that boss battle? Absolutely. Even if most regular listeners never got into his music, his ideas completely changed the game for other composers. His 12-tone technique became a serious method taught in universities, and his pure courage to try something new inspired tons of musicians to start pushing their own boundaries.
And that's really the main point here. Schoenberg's true legacy isn't just about some weird new music. It's the much bigger idea that the rules we live by, whether it's in music or art or anything else, they aren't set in stone. They're there to be challenged, to be questioned, and sometimes to be completely rewritten from scratch. He gave future musicians permission to be new. Which kind of leaves us with one last question for you. Schoenberg hacked the rules of music. So think about it for a second. What's one rule in your world, maybe in a school project or a video game you love, or in the way you draw or create things that you think is ready for a rewrite? What's your tone row?